guitar that came in here a little while back on a trade, and it's interesting because this is kind of one of the most unique guitars that I've ever got in. The guy that dropped this off oftentimes will pay for his work in traded instruments that he picks up from just, you know, various places. This one here, when I got it, I took a look at it and just saw that it had some heat damage here on the pickguard, and if you look, you can really see that the pickguard has been melted a little bit here. You can see that the middle pickup has been kind of melted in, and the pickup itself is even a little bit warped. There's a little bit of some melting here as well, and this one's kind of domed up. So there's some heat involved here at some point. When I took a look at that, I was just like, oh man, there's no way that works. But I wanted to see what it sounded like, so I plugged it in and kind of tapped on it a little bit, and everything worked. I was amazed. I was blown away. I didn't think that was possible because, you know, usually these pickups have, you know, either lacquer or in wax and stuff around the pickup windings, and I thought for sure whatever did this probably melted the hell out of that, and, you know, these pickups aren't working anymore. But it isn't the case. They all work just fine, and not only that, but they have kind of a cool sound to them. Like, you know, going down here to that bridge. It's got a lot of punch, and it's got a little bit of a crunchy, sort of fuzzy growl to it. A little bit like an old Gretsch, which I kind of like. It doesn't have that kind of round sound that I'm used to hearing from like Strats. But you know, that's okay. It's got its own voice. It's obviously not a Strat, so I don't expect it to sound like one. It's not a Fender Strat anyway. So yeah, I don't really know much about this guitar other than what I've done to it, and what I know about the hardware and everything, kind of going and looking at it. The body is swamp ash, which also just is like, what? Because swamp ash is a wood that you generally don't see on, like, you know, student level instruments, which I think that this is. And you know, part of the reason is just it's not like basswood, it's not like poplar, it's not one of those like common woods that you see used in these instances. It's a very light wood, and so I like the fact that this is a very light body, but it's just an unusual material to see. You know, usually that's the kind of thing that you see on a much higher end guitar. I love the fact that this has swamp ash. It's a great wood. It's got good tone. It's got that weight to it that's, you know, very light, actually. You know, this is a guitar that you could put around your neck and play, like, you know, for hours and just not get tired. Neck is, you know, your typical maple neck. You know, it's a nice hunk of maple. So it's pretty free from flaws and all that jazz. It's also got a nice U profile to it, so it's got these kind of steeper sides to it, and kind of comes a little bit more to a point in the back that I'm used to from, you know, these, you know, Strat style guitars. This has kind of more of a profile that I would kind of associate with an older blues guitar, like an old, you know, like an old Stella or something like that. And I kind of like that because the thing is that it's wide in the back, so when you're doing your bars, you've got this nice ergonomic meaty thing to grip into. But it's also got these kind of narrow sloping sides, and so if you want to slip your thumb over, you can, and you can even catch I got relatively small hands, and I can catch those top two strings there, and I can fret the rest of them. So, you know, that's pretty cool. I really like that about it. It's a very nice, comfortable neck. So that's all of the stuff that kind of talk about the guitar as it was when it came in. I guess the tuners, I can talk about those. They're sealed somethings. I don't know what brand these are. They're probably, you know, some kind of generic something, but they all work really well. No complaints there. So go ahead and get into all the stuff that I did here. So I like to keep Strats nice and mobile, meaning that there are two kinds of tremolos in the world. Stuff where you want everything to move really smoothly, and stuff where you don't want anything to move at all. So you're not wanting anything to move at all is like your Kahlers and your Floyd Roses. But when it comes to these older types of trem guitars, you want those strings to be able to kind of glide over surfaces that they're touching very easily. So what I did was I first took out the string trees, because the string trees that were in here were some of those really cheap kind of flat bent house sort that don't have the dimple in the middle like old Fenders did. And the problem with those is that they tend to bite into strings, and at worst they will start cutting your strings, and best they will prove to be a thing that will kind of put a little tension up here in the headstock and keep your guitar from basically kind of coming back in tune when you use your tremolo. If you've ever noticed with a Strat guitar that, like, you know, these 4 top strings are the ones that go out of tune, check your string trees. That's probably the source of that issue. It's a really common one. And it's just because there's a lot of tension stored in this little area here. That's kind of the purpose of those string trees, is to apply that tension to the nut. And, you know, because of that, all that tension there, and if it's not a surface that the strings can slide on really nice and easy, they just don't. And so I replaced those with rollers, because the rollers provide a nice bearing surface that's actually going to move with the string and allow it to kind of do its thing when you use the tremolo and kind of come back into tune. You know, the other thing that I did here was that I added a custom nut. This is a nut that's carved from a blank. It's not from a, like, you know, prefab, you know, CNC'd something, and it's made of real bone. So it's a nice hard material. And the way that I carve these is that I really concentrate on going in there and very carefully sculpting these slots. And so they aren't just straight cut slots. They have a bit of a curve to them that kind of helps guide the string a little bit and helps reduce friction. And I also polish the hell out of the insides of these string slots. I have a hard time getting graphite to stick to the bottom of these by the time I'm done. And that's exactly what I want. I want it to be so smooth that you can't even get pencil lead to stick to it. Great, it's awesome, because that means the strings aren't going to stick to it either. So the strings move really nice in and out of this nut. Going down to the bridge in terms of the tremolo stuff, added a little bit of special lubricant to the saddles, to the bridge plate, and to the inside of the trem block. And I went ahead and strung this guitar up with Fender bullets, which are really designed to go in Stratocaster style guitars. They have a different style of end. You can look them up on Google, but basically they are designed to fit right into those little holes in the trem block and stay stationary. So the nice thing about Fender bullets is that they don't move around a lot, and you know, they kind of remove at least one of the things that can throw a guitar out of tune, which is like a standard string ball kind of shifting around in there and kind of changing its angle and kind of either adding or reducing tension, which will, you know, do funny things to your tuning. So, you know, this is really set up to work well with the tremolo if you decide to use it. I did deck this tremolo, so it's, you know, it's flat on top of the guitar. It doesn't have 2 directions of movement right now. You know, I can do any setup on this thing that you want. If you end up picking it up and you decide that you want it floating, I can absolutely do that for you. As far as the setup goes, it was able to take a very, very nice low setup and partially, you know, the setup, getting back to that, the setup is nice and low. Went ahead and adjusted all of the saddles, got the string radius set, got the string height set, got the neck dialed in, adjusted the truss rod and all that good stuff, and got the pickups all set so we have basically kind of even volume across the pickups, which is kind of what I look for, because I don't like switching the switch and having my eardrums blown out by something that's set up way too high or way too low. And so, yeah, the setup on this guitar plays great. And part of the reason for that is that I also went through and I leveled the level crown and polished the frets. And so when I get guitars in here that are used, typically there's a little bit of fret wear on them. And typically what I'll do is just kind of as a matter of course, because I don't know what condition I don't know what condition the frets are in terms of like how well they're seated in the board. I don't know what, you know, I don't, basically, like, I've done this for so long that, you know, if I get a guitar in that I'm even suspect about the frets, I'll immediately go I'll glue them down, do a level crown polish, which means that they're newly glued to the board, so they're not moving anywhere. They're going to be stable where they're at, and then leveling them on top after they're stable, and then going through and and recrowning, which means to take a crowning file and kind of recurve that flattened top after they've been leveled to a very fine point, which is going to be what you want if you want your intonation to be very precise. And then going through and polishing them, real thoroughly so that, they look nice, but also so that you don't end up with like, weird scratchy noises when you're going to do your bends and stuff. So, this guitar is free of all that stuff. As far as, any other things that I found when this guitar came in, the electronics had some weird stuff done to them. So like somebody went in and kind of experimented with this switch, and so I had to kind of go in there and do a little bit of work on that. But other than that, the electronics in here, they're pretty standard for what this is. They all work great. You got your standard audio taper pots and your switch that's in good shape. You can hear how nice and clicky this switch is. When they stop clicking, sounds so stupid, but when they stop kind of feeling and sounding with that nice click, it means that you might be dealing with one that's kind of wearing out. This one feels almost new, so this could have been installed, by who knows, maybe installed by the same person who burned it. I also went ahead and put in some shielding, because Strats all want shielding. These are kind of noisy guitars typically, and you want to go in and you want to do everything that you can to kind of quiet down the electronics bay in here. And so I went ahead and did that shielding tape. I don't use the paint here because I don't trust it. So that's all done really nice and thoroughly. And touched up the electronics on the switch, which somebody had it like wired so that like these two were on in two settings. It was weird, but that's fixed now. You got standard like this one, these two, this one, these two, and then this one, standard Strat switching. Also went ahead, added this back plate because it didn't come with one, and put a new whammy bar in because, no Strat ever comes in here used with a whammy bar. It just doesn't happen. Don't know why. Don't know what happens to them. They migrate under the couch somewhere or something. But anyway, you can tell this guitar's lived a life. It's been chewed up a little bit. I really debated on what I was going to do with this thing when I first got it in, because, I was also looking at some pickups that I wanted to try in something. And I just kind of decided that this wasn't the guitar that I wanted to try something in. And also it had so much character in this stuff. I was like looking at that going like, okay, this thing plays, it sounds great, but like, is somebody gonna actually want something that's kind of an ugly duckling that's got, kind of all this wear on it? And I have my faith that this will be somebody's bag. So I didn't want to really go in and start ripping out original parts, especially things that had to do with the guitar story and stuff. So I just kind of left it as is, and especially since everything works, like, whatever. I don't really know what happened. It almost looks like somebody like tried to pull a Jimi Hendrix and kind of like throw some lighter fluid on this thing and, light it up on stage or something. It's very strange to me that the fire damage, the heat damage is all contained in like this very specific area, and it didn't touch any of the other stuff. I was kind of thinking when I first saw it that it might have been left out in a hot car, but if it was a hot car, it would have been kind of consistent all the way around on the plastic stuff. So, something happened here. Weird. As far as anything else goes, I'll say that, this is probably one of the more unique guitars that I've gotten in. It's probably one of the student Strats that has some of the better sounding pickups that I've ever heard, come out of something like this. And so I'm really glad that I decided to keep these instead of replacing them and the pick guard and all that. It's got a very nice neck on it. All in all, this is a very, very nice guitar. It would be a great starter guitar for somebody. It would be a great, kick around, drag it to random motel rooms guitar for, somebody who's a more experienced player, or it could be the guitar that you drag to school with you every day. Because I know that the guitars that I used to do that with, used to get pretty chewed up too. So, this one's already got you don't have to worry about this one. It comes pre-chain distressed, it's, so, yeah, if you like that relic look, there you go. If you like stuff with a lot of character, there you go. If you like stuff that's unique, there you go. And if you like stuff that has, you know, the kind of sound that these pickups have, you know, again, just that. Yeah, this might be the guitar for you. This might be your bag. So, just harmonics just fly off this thing. It's great. Anyway, my name is Drew Jones. I probably should have introduced myself at the beginning of the video, but I'm a luthier. I'm a repair person out in Seattle. Most of the videos here on my channel have to do with like repair jobs, weird stuff that comes into the shop, that you know, tips and tricks for players and stuff. If that's your bag, check out the rest of my videos on the channel. Link them to friends. You know, subscribe, like, all that good jazz. And you know, if you find any of these videos particularly entertaining, I also have a link down in the description to my Patreon and my Ko-Fi. You can give me a few bucks. Helps me make these videos because these take a little bit of time out of my day to do. I also have a link down there to my Reverb page, and there will be a specific link to this guitar. If this guitar is still for sale, there will be an active link down there. If that link no longer goes to some place that's active, it means that this guitar has been sold. But if you're still interested in getting something like this, you know, most of the stuff that I do on here is pretty standard fare for guitars, and I may have something like this in stock. So, you know, shoot me a message and ask me about, you know, what kind of electrics I have available, because I might have something for you. Also down in the description, you'll find a link to my website. It has my contact information, it has my pricing info for repair work, and it also has a page that I wrote up to kind of give people kind of advice on caring for stringed instruments based on kind of what I've seen in my long years of doing this work. And if you are here watching this video, you are either looking to acquire or you already have some stringed instruments in your house that you care for, and there's probably some information in there for you. This has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. Thank you for watching.